All right, good evening, everybody. I'm excited to see a large group of participants here again tonight for the Master Beef webinars. Again, my name is Mallory Fancher, and just as we take a little bit of time so all of our friends can hop on, I'm super excited to see everyone tonight. This is night 2 of the Master Beef webinar series here for 2024, and we're super excited to have Dr. Lew Strickland, our extension veterinarian, here tonight to speak with us more about the animal health aspect of things. So, with all of that being said, I'll be quiet and let Dr. Lew get us started. So, take it away, Dr. Lew.
Thank you, Mallory. Oh, glad to be here this evening. Some awfully nice weather. I'm actually sitting out on my back deck. Awfully nice weather. I do wish we had a little more rain, though. I'm sure y'all are starting to hurt, probably having to start feeding some hay. But with that being said, nice being here. What I typically do, this is your meeting. By all means, let's talk about what you want to talk about, not necessarily what I think you want to hear. I really don't know what you want to hear. So I would like to hear from you as to what topic you would like to cover as far as your meeting goes. What do you want to learn about? And you certainly can type into the chat box a topic. I may or may not have slides on it. I have a lot of slides on a lot of topics. But if I have slides on the topic you want to talk about, I'll find them. But if not, I simply will just start talking and answer questions. So I will sit here and wait on some chat box topics. Also, I teach vet students, animal science students. I also teach Sunday school, and awkward silence don't bother me.
I think you're the king of awkward silence. In our chat box, you can submit topics as well as our Q&A box. So if you select more on your panel, kind of your settings panel, there should be a Q&A box that you can submit questions as well.
Okay, Asian tick update, and also just saw a question about how many times should you vaccinate a year. I've actually got an entire talk on vaccination, kind of vaccination 101. I can go to that talk to just kind of cover what I recommend as far as the time of year, how many times a year, that type thing. But right here we got, okay, we've got two questions that are pretty much related to each other. I've got an entire talk on fly control tips and also some horsefly questions here. I've got an entire talk. I guess three of them here will fit together. Asian tick update, horse flies, fly control tips. Gina, I'm sorry, you're asking the wrong man about ag enhancement. So that will be more of a talk for Dr. Mason, or Dr. Mason may even have, Mallory, you may know, does Dr. Mason have anybody coming on that can cover ag enhancement?
So for us, I believe that Dr. Mason would be our contact as far as ag enhancement goes. I know we have an economist coming on later in the series, but I believe he's out of state. And so with that specific topic, I'll look more into that and we'll cover that at the next webinar if that's okay.
Cool. Let me jump to this one real quick, but I do have, I'm going to catch these last two questions here from Debbie and Jeremy just real quick, and then we'll move on to vaccines. We'll move on to fly control. I've got entire talks on those two. So let me just catch these real quick. Antibiotics, how long to wait before using? I'm not 100%. I understand your question here as far as, do I wait 2 or 3 days after I see the animal sick to start using? or if you mean the moment I see them sick, I am more of one that the quicker I use it, the quicker I see that animal, the quicker it gets treated, the quicker it's going to get better. Um, I don't want that animal to have to endure infection. The more infection digs a toehold in, the harder that antibiotic's going to have to work. So I am more of let's get on it pretty quick. What is the long-term negative impact? One of the big problems that I see with waiting too long to use an antibiotic is you wait, that infection gets a toehold, then you treat, doesn't necessarily get better, then you're reaching for something else. Now I've wasted time, I've wasted money, and I potentially am creating resistance. So this is where and of course, with the new antibiotic over-the-counter regulations and feed additive regulations, it's best to have a VCPR with a veterinarian and pretty much stay in contact with that veterinarian, consulting them on what is the best antibiotic to use. Your veterinarian making a trip out to do some sort of diagnostic work instead of just guessing the antibiotic, do a culture sensitivity type deal. So that's where I'm saying don't wait, kind of get on this pretty fast. And that way it gives that antibiotic a better chance to be working. Yeah, there you go, Jeremy. At the moment you see them sick, often, awesome. Just real quick, I'm gonna get Debbie's question, and then we're gonna move on to the vaccines and the fly controls. All righty. Not sure about my thoughts on Burdezo castration. Actually, my thoughts on Burdezo castration is, well, let's look at it this way. Let's back up a little bit. There has been a thought process, and it's just one of those, it's been handed down through generations, that the longer you wait to castrate them, the more gain that you're going to get out of their natural testosterone. All right. Let's think about something real fast. Looking at a bull's testosterone production, they don't start producing enough testosterone to really make a deal, make a big change or anything until they're almost ready to hit puberty. Some of these bulls have hit puberty at 8, 9, 10 months of age. If you're waiting that long, golly, you should have already marketed that calf. That's too long. So, in my opinion, that is a misnomer. That is a false thought process that you're letting that bull gain more out of their natural testosterone. Go ahead and castrate that bull. And, hey, this is me. I just soon castrate that bull coming out of mama, cut him off right then and there, and put an implant in his ear. But it would be a lot easier to do it at 3 months of age, castrate him at 3 months of age and put an implant in his ear, especially if I'm not going to keep that animal around for breeding. So the sooner the better. And I also am a castrate. I mean, as in cut them out, cut and pull those testicles out, and then they're gone. I've run into too many issues of owners banding bulls, and it's done improperly. Either, number one, the bands are old and they don't have enough constricting ability anymore. Sort of going past their expiration date, if you will, almost like that old rubber band. Over time, it loses the constricting ability, and then it doesn't tighten up enough, and then those testicles don't dry up like they're supposed to. Number two, I've seen people miss. So now I got to go cutting. I got to go digging for a testicle in all that scar tissue, and it's a mess. A stag. These are sure enough a mess. And here's another way I like to look at it. Let's just say your thumb has to be removed. Life or death matter. Would you rather me put a band on there and let it rot off, or would you rather take me a blade and just zing it's off? Banding, in my opinion, is the cruelest form of castration that there is. Now that's just me, but that's the way I look at it. So I would rather them zing bottom third of the scrotum off, testicles out, implant in the ear, done deal. Okay. So now let's move on to make sure. Okay, I'll catch this one real quick too. I've got an entire talk about calving issues. I like to breed heifers first. Let's think about it. Who is going to have more dystocia issues, a heifer or a cow? A heifer will. I like to breed my heifers first. That way I can focus my labor around one time a year. So I like to breed the heifers first. That way I know to be watching. I can be watching close. And then once all the heifers are done, then I can I can slack off just a little bit because my cows are most likely not going to have as much problem. So I like to breed my heifers first. That way I can watch them first and then move on to the cows. Okay. Let's real quick from Chuck. If that's called a pair of twins, or one's a bull, one's a heifer. That's called free Martinism. What happens? They share a blood supply, and the hormones from the bull will actually make her tract not develop. So the chances of the heifer being good are only about 5%. So I'm going to move on to the vaccines. Let me find them here. Let me see if I can make my technology work here. And then share. I'm going to find the vaccine talk first. Ah, there it is. I got too many. All right, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I'm going to kind of hit the high points to be able to answer questions. So if I don't answer your question, by all means, raise your hand again or call out or do something. So, okay, you should be seeing Vaccination 101. So what I'm going to try to do here is kind of move on to where you see, and are you seeing that, Mallory? Just making sure everybody can see that.
I was
Right?
just about to say, I can't see it quite yet, but if you try to share one more time, you should be able to.
Share one more time.
Or if you try to share your screen again, we should be able to. I just stopped my share.
Because it says I am screen sharing.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's my end.
Okay,
Found it. Never mind. Sorry.
participants can now see my application. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of move on through this pretty quick. Here, maybe I should stop here. Let me back up. Let's go to this cartoon right here. I typically go through and explain everything, kind of 101, explain everything and how the immune system works. But this is the important part to boosters, because you asked how many times a year should I vaccinate? This is the important part about giving the vaccine to begin with and then giving a booster. All right, antibodies. That is a foreign substance. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a parasite, internal parasite. I don't care if it's a virus, a bacteria, pollen. Those are all antibodies. The immune system sees it. I'm sorry. Those are antigens. I'm sorry. Antigens. Those are foreign bodies, antigens. And then the body sees it and makes an antibody out of it. I apologize there, y'all. Sometimes I get a little excited and take off too fast. What happens is that antigen comes in and there are binding sites. Let me make a pointer here real quick. There we go. Look at and I realize this is a cartoon, it's silly, but it's literally a binding site that's similar to like hands grabbing onto something. and there's very specific antibody binding sites. So when that antigen comes in and binds in there to these sites right here, it allows the immune system to recognize it and then makes an antibody. An antibody is what fights the antigen, whether that be a virus, bacteria, a parasite, whatever. So they make antibodies and they're very, very specific, just like the key to your tractor. If you've got a John Deere tractor, that key will fit that antibody binding site. But if you've got a Ford, it's a different binding site, or International, or an Alice Chalmer. They're all different binding sites, and they're very, very specific for those antibodies. Excuse me, antigens. They're very specific for the antigens to then make that very specific antibody to fight off. And let me just show you real quick. Let's go to right here. Notice here are those antigens, the pathogen, antigen, same thing. They come in and they go to that antigen presenting cell. See this APC? Antigen presenting cell. That's what grabs it, takes it to the immune system right here, goes around here, and then starts to make T cells. Also, it makes memory cells, memory B cells, that then hang around, and they are literally like a bounty hunter. They are literally looking for that particular antigen to come along, and when they see it, they immediately attack it and kill it. And that's what these are. So we've got natural killer cells, we've got macrophages, we've got neutrophils. That's what jumps in there and attacks that pathogen to fight it off. Now, I like to think of it this way. We're all excited. Tennessee just put the stomp on Chattanooga. This past Saturday, ran up like 80 points on them. So we're all excited about football season. But what does the coach want those boys looking like right now? Does he want them to be the front line, especially the front line blockers? Does he want them to be 5'5" and weigh 150 pounds? Or does he want them 6'4" and weighing about 320 pounds? I mean, nothing but protein. If you give, let me go to the slide. Let me find the slide. Hold on just a second. And I know I'm gonna throw y'all a curveball. Let's go to the slide right down here. That one. All right. When we're giving boosters, if I give an initial, and let's look at this one. Here's the initial right here. I gave the initial vaccine, and it takes a little bit of a lag time. It takes about 7 days, 7 to 10 days for them to actually have an immune response. So there will be a primary response. There will be antibodies made that will fight it off. But this primary response is going to be sort of like that 5'5", 150-pound blocker. Yeah, they could block somebody for what? 0.2 seconds. But when you give a booster, you read that label, and I make my veterinary students, I also make the animal science students do it too. I make them raise their hand and swear they will always read the label and follow label directions before they give a medication or a vaccine to an animal. You read that label and it'll tell you to come back in about 2 weeks to give a booster, unless it is a vaccine that only requires one initial shot. But this secondary response, this booster, is going to be that 6'4", 320-pound blocker. Buddy, the immune system's built up. It's been working out with weights. That immune response is going to be able to really fight off a challenge. So my answer to that question, how many times a year should we vaccinate? Well, guess what? I'm not really going to tell you. I'm going to tell you to go read the label and follow label directions. Some of those vaccines are killed vaccines. They will tell you you've got to give an initial Then you've got to give a booster. And then, depending upon the area of the world you live in and the recommendation of your veterinarian, because your veterinarian is going to be much more knowledgeable of the area that you live in. It's going to be much more knowledgeable of the operation that you're running and much more knowledgeable about how many times a year you should give that vaccine. Some vaccines are recommended to give 4 times a year, and it has a lot to do with the vaccine is actually not that good, but it's also to provide extra protection. Sometimes I may say 2 to 3 times a year. So I got a lot of people that ask me that question, what do I vaccinate with? How many times a year do I do it? And I'll say, I'll give them the extension answer. Well, it depends. I can't give you a cookie cutter type response because it's different for every operation. You may be a closed herd that lives off on your own little plum island somewhere. A killed vaccine may work perfectly fine for you, but you may be a stocker operator. You're a Grand Central Station herd. You got calves or cows or whatever coming and going all the time. A modified live is going to be much, much better for that type of operation. And it also depends on the exposure level. Let's look at it this way. If I never go to a third world country, there's no need in me taking any sort of malaria prevention type medication. If you're never going to be exposed to certain pathogens in your herd, you don't need to vaccinate. I saw the question there, parasite. We're going to go over some external parasite stuff, but you may have been meaning internal parasites. I'm not just a snot-nosed kid that read this out of a book. I was in the dairy business 25 years, and then I ran beef cows for another 10 to 15 years. I had the luxury of land now. This helped a lot. I had the luxury of land, and I could rotate pastures. I could rent part of the land out to my cousin, let him plant corn, cotton, whatever he's planting that year, and I could stick my cows somewhere else on the farm. Then when he gathered his crop, whatever that crop may be, off, I was then able to rotate my cows into that area where he had crops. Guys, I didn't deworm cows for 3 years. No need to. I checked fecals. I did fecals to make sure what the parasite burden was. And they never had a heavy enough parasite burden for me to even worry about deworming those cows. I also make that recommendation to deworm on body condition score. If your cows are in the body condition score range of upper 4, 5, 6, you are wasting your time deworming those cows. And I know it's a natural habit. We've done it. Granddaddy did it that way. Daddy did it that way. Well, dang it, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. We deworm twice a year, need it or not. I say quit doing that. The small ruminant world and the horse world are scrambling because of so much parasite resistance, because deworming was not done properly. We're okay right now in the cattle world. Notice I said okay. We're fringing upon bad resistance in the cattle world. I want to keep it that way. So only deworm the cows that look like they need it. If she's fat, she's sassy, let them alone. Your calves are going to benefit more from deworming than your cows will. I've actually got the research project that was done at some of the Middle Tennessee station herds. If that cow was a body condition score, like I just said, 4, 5, 6, upper 4, 5, 6, you were wasting your time and your money deworming that cow. So work with your veterinarian to come up with a game plan for your herd. Get your veterinarian to teach you how to do fecals, or your county agent. I've taught a bunch of county agents how to do fecal counts. It's easy, it's simple. I used to teach my clients how to do it all the time. So that's the way it is. A lot of times I'll give that talk and I'll get the looks like I got 3 heads, more so than I normally do. but that's something to consider. Yeah, I don't really, and that's kind of it for the vaccine. Maybe that, I hope that answered your question on how many times a year should I do it. So let's move on to the fly control one. Okay, let's move through this a little bit. Let's first look at Musca autumnalis. Now I realize this is the face fly. This is going to be early in the year, so we're kind of not really, not really. We're not past it yet. I've still had some guys saying they're having issues with pink eye. So March to early April is when they start showing up, and they're still going to be hanging around. Notice the adult stage is only about 20 days, so they deposit eggs and they hatch pretty quick. Notice it's the female feeds on cattle, the male's on plants, but then she deposits her eggs in fresh cow manure. I want you to notice something else too. She does not have biting mouth parts. She's got sponging mouth parts. What happens with pink eye? And I should have a slide on it here, but I'll talk about it now. What happens with pink eye? It's kind of a stepwise process. It's not just boom, it happens. It's a stepwise process. The cornea is there to protect the eye from the outside world, and then it gets damaged some sort of way. Dust. I realize we got a bunch of it now, y'all. It's dry, and there ain't no promise of rain in the near future. I looked at the weather forecast this morning. I think it's another 10 days of just straight sunshine, and it's getting dry. So a lot of dusty conditions. Tall seed heads can scratch the eyes. Anything of that nature can scratch the eye, and that starts the eye watering. Then Then the fly comes along, face fly comes along, feeds on it, and it carries the bacteria on the mouth parts and feeds, and the bacteria gets in the eye, and that's what causes the infection. So it's kind of a multi-step process. It's not just one thing. And I'm sorry, guys. I really wished I could tell you I have a magic bullet. If I had the magic bullet for pink eye, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to y'all because I could have enough money to retire. But I don't. So I'm not going to be retiring anytime soon. It's a multifactorial process. So it's a multifactorial prevention process. Preventing eye damage, preventing infected cows from rubbing on non-infected cows, fly control, several different steps. Manure control, remember? She lays her eggs in fresh green manure. So manure control. So there's several things that we can do to incorporate fly control and pink eye control. This fly, the Musca autumnalis, is related to the housefly. And we know the housefly will go 2 to 4 miles looking for a meal. So we make that extrapolation that the face fly will do the same thing. So if you have the face fly on your place, you got pink eye on your place, the face fly is there picking it up. They then will travel 2 to 4 miles down the road. They get bored. Hey, I'm going to go somewhere else, do something else. And they'll carry it to the next farm down the road. And they won't hang around but just a little while. And that's the bad part about it. They don't hang around on the cow very long. So there's not much opportunity for these insecticides that we've got to work on them. So that is a problem. We got the hornfly. Now that hornfly is the one that spends over 95% of their life on the cow, and they're the ones that can cause issues as far as biting on their back, uh, causing cows to not be as productive because they're more worried about that fly biting their back. Because somebody said to me one time, they asked me this question, well, why do you even worry about flies being on the cow in the first place? And of course, that's when I had to explain to them, well, that fly bites, and then there's more than 200 on the cow, and that hurts that cow. And now they're more worried about getting that fly off their back than they are worried about eating grass and gaining weight, making milk, those kind of things. Now, this is where the insecticides will work a little better because these flies stay on the cow. They hang around long enough that the insecticide can do something about it. Once again, notice eggs are laid in the manure pat. Here is the horn fly, and notice she's got a needle for biting mouth parts. And that's what I was just talking about. Here comes the question that was just being asked. What do we do about the horsefly? The big old tabanid species. Here is a big problem. I don't know if whoever was asking the question is out in western portion of Tennessee, but this happened back around, it probably was back around COVID shut down, but I remember it being 2 or 3 years ago. And they were sending me pictures of cows with 20 and 30 of these things on their backs. And oh my goodness, these cows were over in the water, and I know that's why they were over in the water. They were trying to get those dead blame flies off their back. And notice right here, they've got scissors for biting mouth parts. They literally dig into the skin and slice the skin open, so you know that hurts. And they're trying their best to get those flies off their back. And the chemicals do not work. These big old tabanids, they use pyrethroid as a perfume, and they use organophosphates as a body wash. They don't think anything about these chemicals. So that was the question from these guys out west. What do we do? So, and I've got some slides here. We're going to come up to them here in just a second on what I recommend for all sorts of fly control. Here is a really cool website that you can go to. And what I really, really like about this website is it has the 4 letters that I really, really like. FREE. It's a free website, veterinaryentomology.org. And it has drop-down boxes. You can find the pest that you want to control, and I'm going to say hornfly, on the species that you're trying to control it on, cattle, and then it will direct you to a pesticide. It is really straightforward. It's not that difficult to figure it out. If you can't figure it out, get your grandkids to help you out. I bet you they can show you how to make it work. But it's a free website, works pretty nice. It will show you what pesticide is available, how to use it, where to use it. Can it be sprayed on the pasture? Can it be used on a back rub? Can it be used as a topical pour on? It's a really handy website. So let's move on. Oh, here's one other thing that we can do here. Here is kind of what we can use now, the organophosphates and the pyrethroids. And the reason we have resistance is because we've used these incorrectly over the years, and now we've caused resistance, the same as the internal parasites. But here is insect growth regulators. This is not an insecticide, so it will not cause resistance. What this does, it interrupts the life cycle. I'm going to move on to the next slide because this is what it does. This diflubenzuron that's in it inhibits the deposition of chitin, which is the exoskeleton of the animal. And I just drew of the insect. This is the exoskeleton right here. If it never forms, the fly never can fly, can't walk around, nothing, and of course it eventually dies. So I usually start using this early in the year in March, and then use it until the first frost, and then you can quit using it. It's a feed through. You can get it in blocks. You can get it in granulated form to mix and feed. There's several different ways that you can use this product. All you got to do is read the label and tell you exactly how to use it. Ear tags, I'm going to put those on when there's at least, well, you see this right here. I'm going to put those fly tags in when there's about 200 per animal. I try not to use these too early. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of blend in the Asian longhorn tick here. And I realize we're late in the year for this, but Dr. Trout Frixel, which is our veterinary entomologist, she's recommending now that we start using fly tags early in the year. And I will agree with her to try to do some tick control, to try to hold down on those ticks that are getting on our animals. So start using those a little bit earlier in the year, around March when ticks first start showing up. So kind of a multifaceted, once again, fly control. Early in the season, we're using back rubs, topicals. Now I'm going to say fly tags earlier to control ticks. Here is the important part. If you don't get anything else, I want you to get this one right here. Use one class of drug for 1 to 2 years. In other words, use a pyrethroid in your fly tag, pyrethroid in your pour-on or your sprays, pyrethroid in your back rubs, in everything for 1 to 2 years, then swap. Then use an organophosphate ear tag, an organophosphate spray, organophosphate back rub in everything for 1 to 2 years before you swap back again. Don't mix those two classes of chemicals together in the same year. That's what causes resistance, because you're killing off all the susceptible parasites, whether that be external, internal, works the same way, internal. If you kill off all the susceptible, all you have left is resistance to breed back to each other. And resistance, bred to resistance, begets resistance. And then, of course, removing tags, keeping up with those tags when you put them in and when you're replacing them. Reading the label. So here is something that I found, because when those producers in West Tennessee started asking me about what do I do about horseflies, I started looking. And what I found is this. In Australia, they have a buffalo fly. Same kind of deal, very resistant to all their chemicals. So what they've done is they're building this little walk-through fly trap. And you can see the cows are using it. They learn how, you have to teach them how to use it first. But after a while, they learn how to use it. This is nothing but a little archway. I promise you, y'all are smart enough, you can build one of these. If you look online, you can find the plans for these. If you can't find them, let me know, either through Dr. Mason or Mallory or something, and I'll show you where they are. But it's covered with clear plastic. When the cows walk into it, the light coming through that plastic confuses the fly. They fly up, get trapped in the plastic, and then they literally just die from just being there. If that's not enough, you can kind of see that little curtain on the other end right there. They walk through that curtain and it wipes the fly off mechanically and it gets trapped. There's the website right there on YouTube where you can watch this, how these animals learn, how the cows learn how to use it. Here's another one that I found, a 55-gallon trap that you can build. Man, this is Alabama redneck at its best right here. This guy right here that's talking, here's the website you can go to, and there's actually another one that is on there. He did something very, very similar, and I'll tell you what he did differently that seemed to work pretty good for him. He took the top off, and he cut a hole, and he mounted a piece of plexiglass right there. Then on the sides, he put a PVC elbow with a short piece of extension on the end of that. Then he hung something nasty in here, piece of rotting meat or something that stinks. The flies will go in the hole right here, and it works like a fish trap. They go in looking for the stink. The light comes in from the top, confuses them. Now they can't figure out how to get back out. And over time, they just die. Then it becomes self-perpetuating. You see all the flies that are in there. And I've talked to some guys that have actually used these, and they said they felt like it works pretty good. The other one that I found, he took sticky tape and put it on the outside of the barrel, just in different places. And of course, the flies get stuck to that. So this is one of those deals where you could strategically place these in areas of your pasture, especially along the fence row, where flies may be coming from another cattle pasture and they get interested in this instead of going to your cows, or maybe put this around a watering trough or a feed trough or a mineral trough or whatever. Of course, cows are curious. They're going to knock these over, so you have to tie them up to where they can't knock them over. But still, this is what we're probably going to have to do, especially to catch these horse flies, because none of the chemicals work on the horse flies. And here's another one, parasitic wasp, that you can put out. And what they do is they feed on the larva. Okay. Now, let me go down here to my chat box. Let's see what kind of questions we got. And let's see what, let me answer some questions. You can certainly type in any questions that you might have, but I'm going to start going through these questions and I'm going to answer these. All right. When is the best age to purchase a bull? Here we go once again. Extension answer. It kind of depends on your operation. But here's the way I would go with it. I'm gonna kind of start looking at a bull around 12, 13-ish months of age to purchase him, to start putting him with my cows. Here's a couple of factors that you'll have to consider though. If you've got a bull already in your pasture and you bring that younger bull in, yeah, probably that older bull is gonna want to show his dominance, and he's gonna want to fight that younger bull off. So I guess it's going to depend on your situation, what you've got. You may have to put those bulls together and let them get used to each other. But there's going to be some dominance hierarchy that's got to happen there for a little while. Ran into this one time. I had a producer that calls me up. He says, "Doc, I've got cows that are open. I've got a multi-sire bull herd. I think I may have trichomoniasis in my herd because of these open cows." Well, I was really, really proud of him, of knowing what trichomoniasis was and what it could do to the herd. But when he told me multi-sire, I said, yeah, you've got a really good idea, thought process there, but let's see if your bulls are good to begin with doing BSEs. And sure enough, I did the BSEs on all the bulls. Everybody passed except for one. And that bull was the dominant bull, and he was running everybody else off. So no cows were getting pregnant. So always doing breeding soundness exams at least 60 days ahead of breeding season. And then keep this in mind too, just because I did a breeding soundness on my bull this year and he was good, I don't mean he's going to be good next year. Breeding soundness exam before every breeding season. What I typically recommend on bulls, I'll have this question too. How many cows can I put my bulls with? What I will do is this is kind of a rough rule of thumb. All right. I take the age of the bull and then that's how many cows I can put him with. In other words, 18 months of age, 18 cows until he reaches maturity. And then I will say you can put him with roughly 45 to 50 cows, especially if he is got a scrotal size of anywhere of 42, 43, 44 centimeters. Lee, I hope I answered your question there with the parasite control. I'm also, well, I talked about rotating pastures, that type deal. So, and we talked about external parasite control. Anaplasmosis, it's not becoming more widespread. It has been more widespread, especially with years like this where there's drought. Folks don't have enough hay. I can't feed this many cows. It is costing me too much money. I got to get rid of this cow. Somebody will buy that cow to sell, then they'll haul it so many miles down the road. We had a young lady here that was a resident, bright young lady. Oh my, I wish I was as smart as she is. She was really into geographical maps and the way diseases move, epidemiology. And she had maps of looking at how anaplasmosis during drought years, would move eastward from Western states. And you could watch how the drought affected the prevalence of anaplasmosis from West Tennessee to East Tennessee. So what you got to do about it? Number one, testing. Make sure you're not buying something and bringing it into your herd. There is a vaccine available that's experimental. I don't know if it works or not. There's not any research trial data on that one. But, however, there's a brand new one. I saw the article just the other day of a brand new anaplasmosis vaccine that has had research trials done on it. I did not take time to go through the whole article to see who has it, where it's available, how to get it. But I think it's through Missouri has that vaccine. So inquire with your veterinarian to see if you're available to get that vaccine. Preventative measures, tick control, because it's spread by ticks. Also, it's spread by you. If you don't change needles, if you just keep on using the same needle over and over and over and over and over, you are guilty of spreading anaplasmosis. It only takes 5/1000ths of a mil of blood to spread anaplasmosis from one cow to the next. So changing needles every shot. Disinfecting equipment between animals. I hope that answers your question there. What am I implanting with? It kind of depends on your situation. Once again, here comes the extension answer. It depends on what you're implanting. If you're implanting steers, there is a Synovex S, and that is for steers. If you're implanting heifers, there's an Synovex H. There's also Ralgrow. I typically will recommend that you consult with your veterinarian. Once again, your veterinarian knows your operation much better than I do. So it all depends on the situation that you're in. So there's Ralgrow, Synovex is kind of your big names that you can use. I will say this, if you are thinking about keeping that heifer for breeding purposes, do not implant that heifer. If you're going to send that heifer to the stockyard, I mean the feedlot, yeah, implant her, move her on. But do not implant a heifer you're planning to keep for breeding purposes. As a vet with what is an ideal birth weight you would like to use on a heifer? Okay, now we're looking at EPDs, and now I'm getting into dangerous waters. I know EPD stands for expected progeny difference. So looking at those EPDs, Dr. Troy Rowan is going to be a much better resource of EPDs to use on those bulls. I promise you, fellers, y'all know more about EPDs than I do. I went to sleep that day in class. I can only fit so much into this head of mine, and EPDs just went by the wayside. But remember, it stands for expected progeny difference. It doesn't mean actual. You may expect 20,000 pounds of calves this year, but the actual may only be 10. It all depends on, you know, what you're doing. So this is a Dr. Troy Rowan question. But I'm still kind of looking at an ideal birth weight on a heifer, anywhere from, once again, it's going to depend on the breed too. What if I've got a Jersey, or what if I've got a Holstein, or what if I've got a Maine and Jew or Angus? Breed's going to make a difference, and the EPDs have breed differences. So if I'm looking at a heifer, I'm kind of thinking in a 70-ish pound rate, and I'm good. What's new on nasal vaccines? Not a thing. They still are the same things that they were. I use nasal vaccines in a very specific type of situation. We've got our typical injectables, which is modified live or killed. And then you have to use those in a very specific manner. You can't use those early on. You have to wait until that calf's a certain age before you can use them. But with nasal vaccines, you can use them quick as the calf hits the ground, because it produces IgA antibodies. That's inside the nostrils. That's different than if you give a parenteral vaccine that makes IgE or IgG. The nasal vaccines work right away. They make antibodies almost immediately. So where I use those is if I run into a situation where you call me out, you've got a group of calves that are sick, but you've got a group of calves that are not sick yet, or a group of animals, however you want to look at it, adults or calves. What I'll do, have you do is separate out the sicks. They need to go to the sick pen anyway. And then I'm going to take those animals that are not sick. They will all get the nasal vaccine. They'll get the nasal vaccine, and that helps to protect them, hopefully, from not catching or fighting off whatever the rest of the group's got. So there's certain situations in the way I use them, but I always strongly encourage you. I can't hold a gun to your head, but I strongly encourage you to come back later and give a parenteral vaccine as a booster, especially one with BVD in it, because nasal vaccines do not have BVD in them. Would I recommend a yearly health check, blood samples checking for disease, health things if you, yep. And especially on new additions, I sure would. Now, I would say this, if you're a closed herd, you're your own little Plum Island out there, there's not another cow within 5 miles of you, you're probably going to be fine. You're not bringing in new cows. You probably don't need to bother with doing health checks unless you buy new animals and bring them in. I don't care what operation you got. If you're buying new animals and bringing them in, you need to do some sort of diagnostic testing on that animal coming in. I don't care if it's the bull, the cow, calf, don't care, to make sure that you didn't buy something nasty and you're bringing it onto your farm. And probably a lot of you have heard of Ellington Labs in Nashville, or you may have heard it called Cord Labs in Nashville. And I really like what they charge you for diagnostic blood work. Here's those 4 letters again, FREE, free. And you don't have, they recommend you have a veterinarian work with you, draw blood, to where you can come up with a health protocol. They can work with you, but it's not required. You can pull blood on your own animals and send it in. It's your animal. You can do it. All you got to do is go to or type go in your Google search bar, C for Charlie, E for Elizabeth, KORD, CE cord. And that's the first thing pops up on the search engine. Once again, you can't find it, get your grandkids to help you. Best age to breed heifers. Here we go. We're back to the it depends question. What size? What breed do you have? What breed have you got? If it's a Jersey, that's going to be different than if it's a Maine and Jew. But the rough rule of thumb is 60 to 65% of her mature body weight is when you're going to breed her. And also, I kind of look at it in that I want her to be about 22 months of age when she calves her first calf. I bump that up just a little bit more. She's that creates more sustainability in the herd. So if you've got a cow that's going to be 1,000 pounds in her mature body weight, you want her bred at roughly 650 pounds. I want to keep the herd organic. Vaccines mandatory, some elective. That's where you have to get in contact with whoever you're going to be working with to certify your animals as organic. I worked with organic herds when I was in practice in Pennsylvania, and that's what I did. When they had a question about whatever, I told them, you've got to get in contact with whoever is certifying you as organic to find out what vaccines can you use and which vaccines can you not use. So I really wished I could give you an answer better than that one. I really wished I could just spit out a list, regurgitate a list of products that you could use, but you're just going to have to get with whoever's certifying your herd and ask them because they're different. They're all different. Nutrition. Okay. Once again, let's kind of go back. I'm gonna tell another little story here. I am a big Clint Eastwood fan, and in one of his Dirty Harry movies, one of his lines is, "A man's got to know his limitations." And nutrition is my limitation. I know just enough to be dangerous. Dr. Mason is going to be a much better resource than I on nutrition, especially in that range right before slaughter. Once again, it's also going to kind of depend on your market. How are you marketing that calf? Is this going to be a grain finished calf? Is this going to be a um, uh, grass based? It all depends on what you're doing, how you're marketing your animals. So Dr. Mason's going to be much, much better than I. I am more of a health prevention, disease prevention. I shouldn't say health prevention, health encouragement, disease prevention, than I am nutrition. Okay, vaccinating booster. And if I miss that, whatever that window is, just get it done. Just get it done. If you miss that 3 week window, if you're doing it at 4 weeks, go ahead anyway. Just do it anyway. You're still trying to. I guess it'd be the same if you're going to the gym and you're working out and you miss leg day or you miss cardio day or whatever you miss. You just need to get back there and do them quick as possible. So you're trying to keep yourself built up. Same thing here, quick as you can. First time heifer, huge bull calf she is raising. She gets a little skinny. What would you do in your opinion when it comes to weaning calves off first time mamas? Once again, going to kind of depend on your situation, how you're weaning those. You're going to have to, on that heifer that's getting a little skinny, you're going to have to provide her with some extra calories. You may even have to pull her off and feed her just a little bit extra. The energy requirement for lactation is very, very high. So you may have to pull her off, give her a little more energy, a little more protein to help her out. Um, in my opinion, when it comes to weaning calves off first time mamas, I generally will let mama do it, but kind of depends on the way you typically wean them off. Kind of whatever weight range that you like to wean them off, you're still going to pull those off those first time mamas. Try to wean them off. If it is pulling her down too bad, you may have to just start feeding that calf separately. Get that calf on a calf starter and try to wean that calf off mama quick as possible and get that calf on grain. Are the pink eye vaccines effective? Once again, depends on who you talk to. All right, let's go over vaccines real quick. We've got two types of organisms that cause pink eye. For decades, we have thought it was Moraxella bovis, but now we're finding Moraxella bovaculi. So have we been hunting the wrong creature all these years? Have we been vaccinating for the wrong creature all these years? Are these two synergistic together? Are they like that little, your dog wouldn't do anything really until that little yappy dog comes along and stirs your dog up and all of a sudden your dog is barking? Do they work synergistically like that? We don't know. You can buy the vaccine that is nothing but Moraxella bovis. Now you can buy the vaccine. Notice, and it's very, very recently, you can now buy the vaccine that has bovaculi in it. So what I have been recommending is actually going with both vaccines to try to give that cow as much protection as possible. You can either do that all together or you can do them separately because that's a gram negative. And gram negative vaccines will knock those calves or cows pretty hard sometimes. And so, what I recommend is not trying to give too many of those at one time because that's going to knock that calf back a little bit. So, I may recommend using them at a different time. So just work with your veterinarian to come up with a game plan on that. Where can you purchase literature? Has all this information. What you can actually do is Mallory or Dr. Mason can help you with this. We have the Master Beef Handbook. I don't, Mallory, help me out. I don't think it's in print anymore. I think it's on a thumb drive now.
I believe it is on a thumb drive. I will ask Dr. Mason just to be sure. And utbeef.com is actually a great resource as well for all things beef and forage related. I know we're in a master beef course, but
Oh yeah.
any beef and forage related will be on utbeef.com as well.
Yes, I have a health section on utbeef.com website that you can go
Yes.
to that has a lot of information on the articles, information on topics we're talking about tonight. If you get the TCA magazine, I have a article. I try my best to write an article to come out in a timely fashion on what you're going to be dealing with at the time that that article comes out. So I've got that there. I've also got a um, okay, I'm pretty good at embryo transfer and diesel engine repair, but I'm not at computers. And Mallory, if you could type this in, my website, askdrlew.tennessee.edu. That's another place you can go to and ask questions. It will send me a notice. Hey, somebody in Franklin County has a question about their cows, and you can ask that question. I'll get back with you. How effective is using baking soda on or mineral with fly control? Sorry, JC. Oh, I just found out that was you typed that in there. JC, I have no earthly idea. I have never heard that in my life. I have no idea what that even is. This is sort of like the one night I was up in Greene County and somebody raises their hand and says, "Hey, what do you think about soaking your salt blocks in diesel fuel for fly control?" And I lost it. I just couldn't stop laughing. Oh, that was just so funny. And first thing is I fussed at them. Diesel fuel is actually toxic to cows. Where did you get that idea? And of course, Granddaddy did that. I just, I said, well, maybe the smell will keep them off. No, don't do that. I have no idea, JC. I've never heard that baking soda. It will cause them to. It'll be sort of like us taking baking soda if we've got upset stomach. It'll kind of reduce their acid. Okay, and I've already gone over breeding heifers. Do you tag cows in their calves? Yes, because I want to know who belongs to who. I want to be able to identify them later. Okay, discuss issues that arise during calving. I've got an entire talk and a demonstration on calving, but paying attention. I like a very specific breeding window. 45 to 60 days. I'll go all the way up to 90-day breeding season. Also, I'll breed my heifers first, like we talked about. That way, I know when to focus my labor around what time of year. I cannot stand a 12, 30-day calving season. I hate year-round calving. Let's think about something real quick. I'm going to plant 5,000 acres of corn. I get everything all oiled up, geared up, planter hooked up, fueled up, fertilized in, corn seed in. I start planting. I plant about 1,000 acres. Oh, shoot, Tennessee's playing this weekend. Let's go watch a ball game. Okay, we'll go watch. Let's quit. We're going to watch a ball game. Oh, cool. They won. Let's go out and celebrate for a while. Oh, now we get through celebrating. We're tired. Golly, a month goes by. Then we go, oh, wait a minute. We got more corn to plant. Let's go. We got to plant corn. Oh, wait a minute. What about that corn you planted a month ago? What have you got to do with it? I got to cultivate that corn. I got to spray it. I got to side dress it. So I got to go back and do that. I got to get back to planting my other corn. And I do this 3 or 4 times. I'm never going to get through gathering corn. Never. I'll never get through. Same thing here. It doesn't make sense to have that spread out calving season. So have a very tight window. That way I can do everything at one time. I can vaccinate my calves all at the same time. I can wean them in a uniform group. I can castrate, dehorn, All of that stuff can be done in a very uniform time. And now I am not an economist. This is an Andrew Griffith type subject, but I've heard him make this comment. I love this comment. Are you going to sell your calves? Are you going to market your calves? There's a big difference. If I'm selling my calves, I'm going to the stockyard, I'm getting what I can out of them. But if I market my calves as preconditioned, I can now get a premium. So having that calving season to where you can be watching all the time, you know when to watch. And also going back to that EPD type stuff, proper breeding, proper body condition scoring, that type stuff. There's a PI positive calf in a neighborhood pasture. Not bear keeping our cows separate while trying to build a fence. You are not being ridiculous. There was a researcher, and BVD was his topic at Auburn when I was doing my residency. Stinking brainwave. I just wish I was smart as this guy. He told me that a PI positive animal can shed BVD virus from one side of an Olympic sized swimming pool pond to the other. So that virus can be shed for a long distance. So if you've got cows that are pregnant in a very specific time window, 40 to 120 days of gestation, and they come in contact with that calf, nose to nose at the fence or through drinking water or whatever, and there's been some talk that deer can carry it from one pasture to the other, you now can have your own set of PI calves. So you are not being ridiculous. Biosecurity and proper vaccine protocols is what you have to use to control BVD. There's no treatment for it. There's not any kind of shot I can give you for it. You have to use biosecurity and those vaccine practices. That's why I encourage you to work with a veterinarian to come up with a vaccination protocol that fits your herd and especially what's surrounding you and the type of vaccine to use. Yes, the 40 to 50 cow bull ratios applies in a 60-day calving window. Yes, sir, breeding season. That is correct. I have no ideas if you'll be sent copies of the new Master Beef Handbook or not. That is a Dr. Mason Mallory question. I don't know. I don't know. Looks like it's being answered right now. We have been watering with sulfur water. They seem to have less flies. I have not been smoking anything. Possible because that sulfur stinks. It's there's a sulfur block that can be bought, and folks swear by them that it keeps flies off their cows. Also, garlic, feeding their animals garlic or cinnamon. It may work, y'all, but I cannot find any sort of peer-reviewed research that says, yes, that works. That is all anecdotal. It is literally by word of mouth. It may work, it may not. I don't have a good answer for you on that one. So once again, I have searched for any kind of project, paper, article that says, stating that the sulfur blocks do keep flies off cows, but I've not found anything. It may very well work, but I've not found anything scientific that says yes. Man, I may have caught up with all of them, did I? Did I catch up with everything? Let's go to chat.
I
Let's
was
go
going
to
to say,
chat.
just more in the chat, but I love all of the participation we're having tonight. That's awesome.
That is awesome, guys. I agree. I appreciate this. This is great. I hate it when I come up and I start talking and there's crickets. Drives me nuts. All righty. What do bovine vaccine schedules look like? This is going to be, once again, depends on you. I will say this, and I had a slide there that kind of went over it, but I'm not going to go back to it. We can just simply talk about it. Most everybody will vaccinate their calves at 3 to 4 months of age. That's at weaning. That's cool. If that works for you, that's awesome. If the sun is shining It's 72 degrees outside. The birds are singing. Those little angels are running around out in the pasture with their tails up in the air, playing with each other, nursing mama. That's cool. That works great. Keep doing it that way. Keep vaccinating at 3 to 4 months of age and giving boosters. But if you've got calves that are dying, it's 30 degrees outside, it's spitting sleet and snow, you just got a bill from the IRS, 50 grand. You can vaccinate earlier. You can vaccinate down around 5 to 6 weeks of age, and you will get bang for the buck. Most all dairy farmers vaccinate at 6 weeks of age anyway. Hardly any of them vaccinate at 3 to 4 months of age. So you can vaccinate earlier and get bang for the buck. It all depends on the situation you're in. That's why I always say work with your veterinarian to come up with a vaccine protocol that works for you, works for your herd, whether you're a closed herd, whether you've got animals in and out all the time, you're a stalker, cow-calf operator. Do I need kill? Do I need modified live? Do I need to be using intranasals? What do I need to be doing? Do I need to be using lepto 5 times a year? Do I need to be using wart vaccine? Do I need to be using pink eye vaccine? That's where you need to work with your veterinarian to see what's needed. Some of these diseases are preventable diseases that you don't even need vaccines for. But there are vaccines out there available that you can stick in your management toolbox. And that's the way I like to look at it. Vaccinations are just another management tool to put in your management toolbox. Vaccines are not 100%. That you don't have an ironclad animal when you stick them with that vaccine. There's too many variables that come into play. And that's what I go into with that talk, that I actually could talk 2 hours just on the vaccine talk. Several things that come into play on when and how to use them, how often to use them, which kind do I use, and that type deal. But there's also management. Do I need, am I testing new additions? What's my neighbor doing? What kind of prevention protocols am I using? Am I doing testing? Am I buying new animals and just sticking them in the herd without testing them? Am I buying a disease and bringing it into the farm? A lot of variables. Injectable versus pour-on dewormer. Okay, I'm sure y'all all know what sub-Q means. SQ, sub-Q. I am intramuscular. I am the type of person that likes a dewormer that is IC in the cow. I get it, y'all. Pour-ons are easy. They're convenient. They're simple. I literally can just have them in the lane and go down the lane, pouring it down their back. It's straightforward and simple. But I think we're finding out, I don't think we're finding out, there's papers out there that are showing that these pour-on vaccines are not as effective as we think they are. So I like an injectable or down the mouth. Okay, I talked about breeding heifers, problems that can arise, issues to look for. I will say this one, come calving time, I will give a heifer longer to have that calf than I would a cow. That heifer, usually her stage of labor can be any, there'll be 2, 3 stages of labor. One, pre-game warm up, which can last for a long time. But then second stage of labor is when the calf's delivered. I give a heifer hour, hour and a half before I intervene. Cow, she should be done in an hour. Calf out and done. That happened. I'm going to use my wife as an example because she's in the house and she can't hear me, I don't think. Our first child, when she went into labor 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock the next day, first child was born. The next 3, I don't just study reproduction, y'all, I practice it too. The next 3, buddy, we could barely get her in the room. Pow, child was out. So heifer, I'm going to give her just a little bit longer, but I'm still going to monitor that heifer. I'm going to have that pasture, that cabin pasture close to the house, not on the back 40 where I got to load up and ride on the 4-wheeler, the side-by-side every day to the back 40 to look, unless you just really, really like riding your side-by-side. Keep them up there close to the house and also have them in an area that's easy to get to, where you can easily put them in the chute or catch them or whatever you got to do to be able to examine them. So that's kind of my recommendation. Have all your stuff ready to go, your chains, your calf jack, know how to use them. Plenty of lube and OB sleeves. Hoof problems on bulls or big cows in the dry weather. What can happen with these rascals? And I agree, David, is these dry weather, their skin can get dry, they can crack, the hooves can crack, and they can easily get infected. So making sure you got a good mineral program. And also, I know this is difficult, y'all. I've been there, done that. I was in dairy business 25 years. Trying to keep the pastures as clean as possible, injury-free as possible. Anything that can damage that skin in between those hooves can cause hoof rot, that type deal. I said, pour on. Real quick. Thank you. I forgot to mention this. Big Pharma is not paying me to say this, but I do not like a generic dewormer. We're also finding out generic dewormers aren't working either. With generic dewormers, they're actually able to get away with a form of ivermectin that is not as pharmaceutically available as a name brand. So use a name brand. How many times do you have to take cows to the vet when they're pregnant? If you manage them right, you don't. Comes down to management. Now, I would recommend your vet be out there at least once a year, and you need that anyway to develop a VCPR to be able to buy over-the-counter antibiotics for that veterinarian. And sorry, they're not over the counter anymore. They're all script items now. You have to have that VCPR to be able to buy those antibiotics, get a script from your vet. So you need that vet out there at least once a year anyway. Here's the way I like to look at it. Don't look at the vet as being an extra expense. Look at that vet as being a extra set of eyes on your farm or your county agent. Don't look at that as a negative having them out. Look at it as a positive. I guarantee you I had this when I was in the dairy business. You've all got it. You've all done it. Promise you you've done it. There is a condition called barn blindness where you literally walk by something on your farm every day and you don't even see it. You don't even notice it. You walk right by it. You're so accustomed to it, you pay no attention to it any longer. Having that extra set of eyes on your farm could potentially identify a problem on that farm. Hey, you ever thought about that right there might be a problem? So don't look at that extra set of eyes on the farm as being a negative. What type of vaccine do I recommend for stock or cattle? Yeah, you heard my answer a while ago, Jeremy. I'm going to make you mad. I'm not going to tell you. You have your own individual operation there. I typically am going to recommend some sort of modified live respiratory vaccine in a blackleg. You need to work with your veterinarian to establish what's going to be the best one for your farm. There's scads of them out there. So kind of depends on what you've got in your area, where your calves are coming from. You're buying them from order buyers, probably. You may be going and getting them yourself. One thing that's going to be really important is not to commingle those calves together all at once from different sources all at once. Have some sort of area where you can isolate those animals. Don't quarantine them right away. Don't vaccinate them right away. Give them just a little bit of time to settle down, then vaccinate them. Give them about 24 hours to figure out, here's the water trough, here's the feed trough. Nice, clean water. I'm one of those silly fellas that thinks my cows ought to have as clean a water to drink as I do. Good quality forage for them to eat. Then vaccinate them and test for diseases. Pink eye vaccine versus implant. All right, there are two types of vaccines. Thanks for bringing this up. There are two types of pink eye vaccine. One is a killed, which is you just inject the vaccine, and then you got to come back and give a booster. We actually use this implant in the CVM. This implant is just like a hormone implant, goes behind the ear, or you can put it in the skin and the neck. And what it does, it breaks down right away, just like you giving a vaccine. Then the other part of the implant hangs around for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it breaks down and gives them a second dose. In my opinion, that's a really good idea. That's one less trip through the chute. I like it. It'd be great if more vaccines were delivered in that platform, but I'm not a smart fellow like those vaccine makers. So there you go. I don't know why it's not done. I don't know how this one works. That implant, I don't know how they make it hang around for 2 more weeks before it breaks down, but they do. I like that. Here's what's important, and it's the same thing we talked about a while ago. Making sure, and I don't think the implant has both of them in it. I think the implant's only got bovis in it. They may be working on, I think I heard somebody say, one of the pharmaceutical reps say they're working on getting bovoculi, both of them in the implant. So, but if you're going to do pink eye vaccines, do both. Do the bovoculi and the bovis. What age is a cull cow? It all depends on what that cow does. Here we go. Here's the extension answer again. If I've got a heifer, she ain't getting pregnant. We've already gone through 2, 3 cycles. Here she is, 22 months of age, and she ain't pregnant yet. She now is a cull cow, in my opinion, because now I'm working for her. She ain't working for me. I'm spending money on that cow, and she's not going to give me any return. Now, if that cow has a calf every year, she supports a calf. She supports her own body weight. I'm good until she's on up there, 10, 12 years of age. But if she ever loses a calf during gestation, she does not get pregnant during that very specific time window, I'm sorry, sweetheart, but we are going in different directions. You need a new career path because she is now costing me money. Cull cows can actually make up 20% of your farm income. This was during COVID. We didn't stop, even though our students couldn't come in any longer. We didn't stop. And so one of the clinicians calls me up one day, hey, can you go help me work some cows? Hey, buddy, I'm down working cows. So I took off, and I was typically where I am when I'm working cows on the south end. I'm preg checking, but they also wanted me to age these cows. So I'm going through open cow, and I'm checking their mouth, and some of them are old enough to vote. They're broken mouth, nothing there. I'm going, okay, I've got to have a word with somebody because the owners weren't there, just their hired hands were. And I asked them about this. What do you do with these cows that are not pregnant, just so old? Oh, we just let them die here on the farm and we just dig a hole, put them in it. I'm going, oh my Lord, look at the money you are throwing away. So, preg checking those cows. If she's open, I'm sorry, sweetheart, you got to go. What is the best way to treat late stages of pink eye when caught late? There are all right, there's 4 different stages. Number 1 is you're just catching it watering. That's the best time to treat it, like then and there, with a long-acting antibiotic and some sort of eye cover. Whether you buy those eye patches that are made for it, or you take some old blue jeans and back tag glue, and you make your own tag to go over, a patch to go over the eye. Also, you can treat by injectable antibiotic, either whether it's IM or sub-Q, whatever it says on the label, and also taking some of that antibiotic and just squirting it in the eye, pulling it up in the syringe, and then just spray it in the eye, and then put the eye patch on. We used to do third eyelid flaps. Actually, I don't do those anymore because research has now shown it will heal. If you treat it one way, it'll get better in a week. If you treat it this other way, it'll get better in 7 days. It's the same difference. So I have started either sub-Q or IM antibiotic, squirt some in the eye and put the patch on their eye. And that works for late stages. Now, there's stage 2 and 3 are getting further down the road. 3 is where you see that eye that's nothing but pus in the eye. That eye needs covering up. You're probably going to have to do 2-3 doses of antibiotics for that one to clear up. That's late stages. That's why I say treating is much better early on. But then there's stage 4. That's where the iris prolapse through the cornea. That eye has to be taken out. That eye has to be enucleated. I can't treat. That's the only way I can treat that eye. And I'm going to use a long-lasting antibiotic: oxytetracycline, Draxin, Zactran, Nuflor, something of that nature. Long-acting. Penicillin will work, but you got to give shots twice a day. And you know, after that first shot, she's pissed off, ain't coming back in the chute. And there are some topical eye treatments that you can use. Vetricin, which is basically nothing but water with a little bit of Clorox in it. And you could do the same thing with the eye wash that you buy for yourself at Walgreens. But once again, you got to treat it like twice a day. So I like using the long. Don't be throwing salt in their eyes, please. Sweet. You're already working with a vet, Jeremy. Good deal. You just want a second opinion. That's awesome. All righty. Okay, I think I've caught up with all the questions, all the comments. I think I have. Have I caught up with everything, Mallory?
Just about. There's a couple more back in the Q&A box, but
Q&A.
past
Here we go. We'll go back to
we've got
Q&A.
about 10-15-ish minutes left, so we'll
Okay,
start wrapping
cool.
up.
Awesome. Awesome. I got enough stuff. We could talk till 12 o'clock this evening. All right, I have a small herd. Is it okay to pasture a bull alone? Yes, it's okay to pasture a bull alone if you got a big herd. Here's what I typically will do. We'll go through breeding season. The bull or bulls are out with the cows. We'll go through the breeding season, and then we pull the bulls. They go into a lot by themselves. Preg checks happen. All of the cows get preg checked to make sure who is, who ain't. Those that are not pregnant, I'm sorry, sweetheart, we're going in different directions. You got to go somewhere else. You're costing me money. And then once that's done, the bulls can go back out in the pasture with the cows. No problem. That's typically what's recommended. And as a matter of fact, if you are using a 12, 30-day season right now, there is a plan, a 3 to 4 year plan on how to work yourself down to a 60 to 90-day season or 45 to 60-day season, whichever one you want. There is a plan in the Master Beef Handbook on how to do that, because you don't want to go whole hog right away, because all of a sudden you're not going to have calves to sell for a little while. You want to be able to sell something. You got to have some sort of income coming in. So there's a game plan on being able to work your way down to a defined breeding season. Okay, and I just answered the late stage of the pink eye. Black leg vaccination for calves, yes. And booster those, please. You can, all right, I've had this happen. When I was in practice in Cleveland, Tennessee when I very first got here, DVM behind my name. And I would get calls, Doc, we got calves dying left and right. I'll go out there and sure enough, it is just the right size, about 400 or 500 pound calf, rapidly growing calf, and you run your hand across them and you can feel the gas underneath the skin. Of course, telltale signs of blackleg. And my first question back to them is, well, do y'all vaccinate? Doc, we used to do that all the time, but we didn't have no trouble, so we quit. And I'm about to lose it right then and there. Yes, blackleg vaccination. And also I've had this happen too. And I recommended it in those herds. I've had it happen since I've been here. Agents call me up, they got cows dying. They did send in a necropsy. I recommend you do that. Cow dies, send it over to Cord Labs or over here to UTCVM. The necropsy is free, FREE. You do have to pay for disposal, but in my opinion, it is very nominal fee. And you'll get information on what's going on. And that's where your veterinarian can help you from that report on how to prevent problems on down the road. But yes, you can vaccinate even earlier. You can vaccinate down around 4 or 5 weeks of age. And that's what I told these folks to do. Vaccinate that young calf quick as you can. Anything you get in that calf to protect that calf, and do boosters. Do I castrate based on the signs of the almanac? Typically, my signs for castration are the owner says, "Hey, Doc, would you castrate my calves?" That's my sign. But yes, a lot of people will castrate on the signs. I've seen it myself. There's less bleeding, less swelling. So if that works out for you, the time of year to go by the farmer's almanac to do this stuff, have at it. But like I said, usually my castration is, "Hey, Doc, I need you to castrate calves." Pink eye spray application, I will say this. I've never used it, but I've had several people using the Vetricin. Also, I have found research papers that say there is a pain score goes down using that Vetricin. The lesion score seems to reduce faster, or the lesion gets with the Vetricin. But in my opinion, the same thing would happen with just the eye wash that you buy at Walmart, and it's going to be a lot cheaper. So either one. But what you're doing when you're applying that, you're keeping those toxins and those bacteria washed out and reducing that inflammation. Should we fly tag the cow and her calf? Whatever the label says, that label tells you to put a tag in both of them, put a tag in both of them. But if that instructions say, do not tag a calf under, I'm just going to say 4 weeks of age, don't do it. I go with the instructions, but work with your veterinarian. If your veterinarian feels like it's necessary on your farm, do what your veterinarian says. I don't know your herd. I don't know your situation. So all sorts, but implement all those other fly control measures we talk about. Manure control, riding around out in the pasture. Hire a teenager to ride around the pasture with a 4-wheeler with a piece of chain link fence tied behind the 4-wheeler, spreading the manure out, and then the flies have nowhere to lay their eggs. Build a fly trap, bush hog pastures. Try to create more trough space to where these cows aren't rubbing eye to eye. Any kind of control measure, anything that can reduce damage to her eye. Should a vaccine be thrown away exactly on the expiration date, or will it be good for a time after the expiration? No, you throw it away on the expiration date. Modified lives, I like modified lives for the application that they are. But once you mix a modified live, you have 1 hour to use it up according to the label directions. You cannot save a modified live for later. Once you mix it up now, if it's not mixed up, you can save it for the expiration date. And also a killed vaccine, you can simply store it for the expiration date and read the label. It'll tell you exactly how to store it. And when you take it chute side, keep it cold. Keep it in the cooler. A whole nother talk. Any antidote for acorn poison, don't let them get in acorns. Fence those trees off. That's all I got to tell you. There's activated charcoal is one you can do, but if you got a group of cows that are down with acorn poisoning, that's a lot of activated charcoal you're going to have to pump in cows. So try your best to keep them out of it. Why in the world they develop a taste for those things, I don't know. I understand they're pretty bitter, but they like them. So fence it off where they can't get in underneath those acorn trees, well, even if that's just a hot wire. Awesome question, everybody. I like it. Okay, is there 3 more in the chat box?
Yes, just 3 in the chat box, and then I think we'll be wrapping up.
Wrapped up. Okay, and there you are. That looks like it's all on the Master Beef Handbook. Okay. All righty. Here's your chance, and I do this on a regular basis, especially if I'm working cows. Before I turn that cow out of the chute, I go all in, all done. before I open the chute. So, all in, all done. Seeing and hearing crickets, literally, because I hear crickets out on my back porch. Thank you for letting me join you by Zoom tonight. Hope I got your questions answered, went over stuff y'all wanted to hear, were able to learn a few things. And Mallory has put my site up there, UT Beef site up there. Please utilize those. That's it, Mallory. I'm turning it over to you.
Sounds good. We are super excited to have everyone back on for our night 2 of the webinar series. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Lew using his website, or going back to this recording, we will have these recordings available for all the participants as well on a YouTube playlist, and your local extension agents should have access to that playlist and can get that access for you. But in the meantime, if anyone has any questions regarding attendance or any housekeeping things, I'd be happy to answer those. You can also contact your local extension agent to get those answered as well. But with all of that being said, we're super excited everyone joined us here tonight, and we'll see you again next Tuesday.
Well, I got to answer
Thanks,
this
Dr.
last one. Auburn is in Alabama. There may be an Auburn, Georgia somewhere, but the Auburn I went to is in Alabama.
War Eagle.
War Eagle. All righty. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.